The last shot. The early morning sun cast a gentle glow across the shooting range, its light filtering through the trees and creating a mosaic of shadows on the dewy grass. The air was crisp, with the promise of a warm summer day ahead. Anna stood at the entrance, her breath visible in the morning chill. She smiled and inhaled deeply, savouring the peaceful atmosphere. It was a woman in her 30s, with a slender build and medium height. Her wavy dark hair framed her attractive face, and her intelligent green eyes sparkled with excitement. She loved these quiet moments at the range, the calm before the storm of her daily life. She adjusted the strap of a gun bag on her shoulder and squinted into the distance, where she could see a solitary man's figure already setting up targets. "Charlie!" she called out, waving as she approached. Charlie turned, a weary smile spreading across his face. His dark under-eye circles and uneasy look were more pronounced in the soft morning light, making him seem older than his age. He raised a hand in greeting, and Anna quickened her pace, eager to catch up with her long-time friend. "Hey, stranger," Anna teased, coming to a stop beside him. "Where have you been hiding? I haven't seen you around here in ages." Charlie chuckled, a sound that seemed to carry a hint of sadness. "Oh, you know, life gets busy. Work, family stuff, the usual." Anna tilted her head, studying him closely. "You look like you haven't slept in days. Everything all right?" "Yeah, just a lot on my plate," Charlie replied vaguely, avoiding her gaze. "But enough about me. How have you been, Annie? Still the best shot in town?" Anna grinned, her green eyes sparkling with mischief. "You bet, but I could always use some pointers from the master." Charlie laughed, the sound more genuine this time. "All right, let's see what you've got." They spent the next few minutes setting up their gear in comfortable silence, the only sound the rustling of leaves and the distant chirping of a bird. The shooting range was deserted at this hour, giving them the entire field to themselves. Once everything was in place, Anna took her position, her hands steady as she aimed at the target. Charlie stood beside her, watching with a critical eye. "Your stance is good, but you need to relax your shoulders a bit," he said, stepping closer to adjust her posture. His hands were warm on her arms, guiding her gently. "And remember to breathe. In through the nose, out through the mouth." Anna nodded, diligently following his instructions. She felt a sense of calm wash over her, the familiar rhythm of the range soothing her nerves. She took a deep breath, held it for a moment, and then exhaled slowly as she pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, echoing through the empty field. "Oh, nice one," Charlie said approvingly. "But you can do better. Try again." They continued practicing, with Charlie offering tips and Anna gradually improving her aim. The sun climbed higher, burning off the morning haze and warming the air. They chatted between shots, catching up on life and exchanging playful banter. It felt good to be back in their routine, the camaraderie they shared being a comforting constant in an ever-changing world. After a while, Charlie stepped back, giving Anna space to focus. "All right, now, let's see a perfect shot," he called out, his voice carrying a note of encouragement. Anna drew in a slow, steady breath, centering herself. The weight of the rifle was familiar in her grip, the finger poised lightly against the trigger. Every muscle in her body tensed in perfect alignment, her focus honed to a razor's edge. She exhaled. Just as she was about to fire, a faint rustle stirred behind her, followed by the soft thud of something shifting. Her instincts flared, freezing her in place for the briefest of moments. The wind? A stray branch snapping under the weight of an animal? She pushed the thought aside. Distractions had no place here. Steadying herself, she squeezed the trigger. The sharp crack. The shot tore through the air, ringing out with vibration. For a beat, she remained still, eyes locked on the target, assessing. Then, satisfied, she turned, a triumphant smile curving her lips. "How was that, Her words died in her throat, as suddenly she saw Charlie lying in the grass a few feet behind. A small bullet hole in the middle of his forehead. A thin trail of blood trickled from the wound, mingling with the dewdrops on the ground. His eyes were wide open, a look of surprise frozen on his face. "Charlie!" Anna's voice dropped to a whisper. She lowered her gun, her hands trembling. "Charlie!" She rushed to his side, her mind racing. How could this have happened? He had been standing well behind her, out of the line of fire. Panic set in, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and fear. She knelt beside him, her fingers hovering over the wound as if she could somehow undo what had been done. "Charlie, please!" she begged, tears blurring her vision. "Please, be okay. Say something." But there was nothing. No movement, no sign of life in her friend's face. Anna's heart thundered in her chest, each beat a deafening drumbeat that drowned out all other senses. How could this happen? It was not her bullet. It couldn't be. Someone else fired this shot. Suddenly, panic rose and started seeping into her heart as her breath hitched, short and uneven. Her eyes darted upward wildly, scanning the dense foliage, every shadow and shifting leaf looking like a potential threat. The air felt thick, suffocating, and her hands were shaking uncontrollably as she grabbed her weapon and clutched it tighter. Whoever had done this was still out there, hidden and watching. And this thought sent a cold, creeping dread down her spine. She was exposed, vulnerable, and her instincts screamed at her to run, to hide. But she didn't know where the danger would come from next. The adrenaline surged through the young woman's veins as the realization of her vulnerability pressed down on her like a vice. Her breath came in ragged gasps, each one more laboured than the last, and her chest tightened with the suffocating grip of fear. She could almost feel someone's eyes on her, unseen, relentless, and predatory. She spun around, desperately searching for a sign of where the next threat could come from. But the range stood silent and empty, and every second that ticked by felt like an eternity. Her mind scattered, flashing between half-formed plans and desperate thoughts. Should she try to find cover? But where? Could she make it to the edge of the woods? She froze in place, indecisive, and the oppressive quiet around her only amplified the gnawing dread that she was being hunted. She was alone out there, with no backup, no escape plan, and no idea how close danger might be. A small brown bird burst from a nearby shrub in a sudden flutter of wings, startling the stillness. That was when the cold, paralyzing grip of terror that was holding Anna loosened just a bit, just enough to ignite a single primal instinct. Flight. She needed to get out, now. Her car. She parked it just beyond the tree line. Now it was her only sanctuary, her only chance. She bolted in its direction, her feet pounding against the uneven ground as panic pushed her forward. Every step was a frantic race against time, her feelings a blur of fear and desperation. She stumbled, nearly tripping on a protruding knotty root, but caught herself and kept running, driven by the visceral need to put distance between herself and whatever or whoever was out there looking to hurt her. Reaching her car, she fumbled with her keys, her hands shaking so violently she could barely get them into the lock. Her vision blurred with the sting of tears she didn't remember shedding, and it felt like every second stretched into a nerve-wracking torture. She yanked the door open and threw herself inside, slamming the door shut with a force that rattled the windows. On the passenger seat next to her was her cell phone. Anna snatched it and dialed the police, her fingers clumsy and rigid. All she could think of was the danger she'd narrowly escaped and the uncertainty of whether it was truly over. 911, what's your emergency? There's been a murder! Anna cried into the phone speaker hoarsely, her voice catching as she struggled to explain through the haze of her turmoil. My friend, he's been shot! He's dead! Please, you have to send someone here, now! Please calm down, Mom. What's your location? Anna gave the address to the operator, her eyes darting around the empty range. Please hurry. I think someone is still out there. We're dispatching units to your location now. Stay on the line with me. But she couldn't stay. Suddenly, at the edge of the range, she noticed a distant outline of a dark figure slowly emerging from the line of trees. Her eyes widened in terror, and her heart seemed to stop. This is it. The killer. He is coming after her. The overwhelming impulse to run drowned out all reason, leaving only one command. Run! She started the car, her foot pressing hard on the gas pedal. The tyres squealed in a piercing cry, splitting out a wave of gravel and soil as she backed out of her parking spot and sped away. The phone was still clutched in her hand, emitting short, annoying beeping of the disconnect tone. She barely noticed this ringing as she realised the call had been cut off in her panicked flight. The drive turned into a chaotic blur, every mile speeding by in a disjointed rush. Anna gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white, the leather biting into her palms. Her heart pounded heavily, and the engine's rumble, that usually seemed to her to be such a comforting sound, felt too loud and pulled at her already strained nerves. She could barely focus on the road ahead, her consciousness clouded with a whirlwind of fear and fragmented thoughts. She glanced repeatedly in the rear-view mirror, her eyes switching constantly between the road behind her and the fast-approaching horizon. She half expected to see headlights barreling toward her, some faceless threat chasing her down, closing the gap between safety and the horror she had fled. But the highway stretched on placidly. Barely a few vehicles passed by her, and the only thing chasing her was the midday light that creeped through the trees on both sides of the road, casting long, rich shadows that slithered across the asphalt like dark tendrils reaching for her. Nevertheless, she could still feel the lingering eyes on her, the creeping sensation of being watched, hunted even, though she knew she was alone on this desolate stretch of a highway. Recollections of Charlie's lifeless features and the unsettling sight of a dark, ominous figure walking towards her replayed in her mind, continuously looping as she drove. Every passing object, every flicker of movement at the edge of her vision sent jolts of anxiety through her, as if the danger she fled from could reappear at any moment. The rational part of her knew she was putting distance between herself and the scene, but the rest of her was still caught in that instant of horror, unable to let go. She had to keep going. She couldn't afford to stop, not until she was somewhere she could feel safe, catch her breath and make sense of everything. When she finally reached her house, she slammed on the brakes in relief and jumped out of the car, sprinting inside for the cover of her home. She found her grandmother, Lily, in the kitchen, busy preparing lunch. "Annie, what's wrong?" Lily exclaimed, startled. Her mouth slightly opened in concern as she saw the troubled look on Anna's face. "Grandma, I need you to lock the doors and stay inside," Anna cried out a warning in an unstrung voice, briefly pausing in the kitchen entry. "Something terrible just happened." With that, not waiting for a response, nor giving any further explanations, she ran to her room and sank limply to the floor, her back against the wall. She took deep, shuddering breaths, trying to calm down. Her hands were still shaking, and tears bursted from her eyes all over again. It was then that she decided to dial the police the second time. But she couldn't stop wondering who had killed Charlie and why. And more importantly, were they coming for her next?